I'm nervous. I have to follow up a sex talk. Um, Hopefully, please be nice to me. Right. So before I talk about, the slide, yes. Before we talk about silk and everything science, I want to talk about today. Today is February 11th, and it is a very special day. Not because Valentine's Day is 3 days away, I think. Yeah, the magical time where capitalism sneaks up on us and says, if you don't buy chocolates and flowers, you are not in love. No, that's not why February 11th is a special day. Today is International Day of Women and Girls in Science. So can I get a hip hip? That's the energy need, that's the hype all of us girl in science need. So keep hyping us up. So now we'll go to our talk. So before I get into the science of silk, I want to talk to you about the evolution of silk and me. Because, yeah, it's confusing. That's me before starting a PhD. And silk meant my favorite sari. And that is a silk sari that I'm wearing, and I felt fancy. I had a life. I was reading actual books. And then there's me after PhD. Sorry, that's not me, that's Elizabeth Holmes, holding her blood vial. Apparently she was into groundbreaking science. Turns out it was more ground faking than groundbreaking. But let's move on to my picture. That's me, holding an actual silk cocoon. Thank you, guys. That's me holding a silk cocoon. And this material actually delivers on its promise compared to Elizabeth Holmes' blood vial and all the marketing around it. So enough of digging to Elizabeth Holmes and her past. So after PhD, I'm actually in my third year right now, feeling stressed. I don't have a life. I'm sleep deprived. And even though I'm smiling, I'm dying inside. And I don't read books anymore. I have halfway read journal articles, and I have a million tabs open in my Chrome, and I don't want to close any of it because I don't know, what if I might need them, you know? What if my supervisor asks a question and the answer is in one of those tabs? So I don't want to close any of it. Anyways, moving back to the science of it. So next I want to talk to you about silk. And yes, my sari is made out of silk. So is probably the fancy pair of pajamas you own, or the silky smooth pillowcase some influencer tricked you into buying because they told you that it's not going to give you wrinkles. I don't know about that. Silk actually comes from different insects and worms and different organisms. But the silk that I use in my research and the silk that is probably in the silky pillowcase you own or the fancy pair of pajamas you own probably comes from these guys. That is a silkworm, guys. So that is called Bombyx mori. That is not a spell from Harry Potter. It's actually the scientific name of that little guy over there. And I came to Australia two years ago from Sri Lanka, and I know you Australians like to shorten your words. So how about we call it BOMOS? Okay? We're going to call it BOMOS. Okay. So a little side story before I get into the science stuff of it. I was making some slides that required me to be creative, and I came up with a silk superhero. And I had different drafts of it, and I made it, and then I actually showed it to my friend sitting right over here. Hi, Sachini. And she looked at it, and she said, that looks like a tampon. No, it's not. But yeah, so I was really upset, and I asked ChatGPT, like any sane person would do, what does a silk superhero look like? And this is what it came up with. I think my silk superhero can take ChatGPT silk superhero any day, any time. Okay? Okay, enough of superhero stuff. Back to science. We know that silk comes from the bomos that make silk cocoons. So the adult moth lays eggs that turn into larvae that produces these cute guys, bomos, right? The silkworms. And these silkworms undergo metamorphosis where change from a worm to an adult moth. But when they do undergo that change, they create a cocoon around themselves. So they secrete a liquid silk when it goes out into the air, when it gets contacted with air, it turns into a solid material, and that forms the solid fiber that they surround themselves to form the cocoon. And the fun fact about the silk cocoon is that it is made out of one single continuous fiber that can be from 300 meters to 900 meters long. Fancy, amazing, right? Hence, silk superhero. Okay? Perfect. Now that we know about the silk, let's move into, I want to show you a picture of actual cocoons and some bombos. No, it's not the newest Tic Tac flavor with a side of protein. This is actually some cocoons with some silkworms or bombos. All right? Yay, love the audience. Okay, next up we have, now we know that silk comes from cocoons from bombos, right? But we need to understand what these silk fibers are made out of. So one single fiber is made out of two tiny fibers called fibroin. And then it is covered with a glue called sericin. And this is an electron microscope image of a single fiber that has two tiny fibers, which is called fibroin. And then we have the glue that surrounds it called sericin. Great. We have our scientific words. On to the next slide. So now that we know what silk fiber is made out of, I'm going to talk to you about these weird, not weird names, but yeah, fibroin and sericin. So fibroin makes up 70 to 80% of the silk's weight, the total weight of the cocoon. And the sericin, that makes up 20 to 30% of the weight of silk cocoons. Fibroin is actually water repelling. It doesn't like water. And the opposite is true for the glue, that is, it attracts water. When you take fibroin, it is pretty strong because it is made up of proteins that are well organized. Whereas the sericin is not made up of those strong organized structures, hence it is not strong. So they show opposite qualities. And this is why most of the commercial applications and the research were all focused on the fibroin bits because of its strength. And also my silk sari you saw before, that comes from the textile industry, in fact, removes the sericin before it goes into production of those clothing material. So they put some chemicals and heat it up to a high temperature to get rid of the sericin, and that's what gives it that lustrous, luxurious nature. So because of that reason and because of the amazing strength properties shown by fibroin, scientists were obsessed with silk, but only in fibroin. And sericin was the underdog of the silk world. Nobody wanted to deal with it. Even though recent researchers have found it to be amazing. It has shown to have antibacterial, antioxidant, and many other amazing properties. But not much research has been done in that area. So in my PhD, I work heavily with the underdog of the research, silk world, that is sericin. Yes! Thank you. Sericin says thank you. And I also work with fibroin because I cannot resist. He's so strong. So I use both of these components, but majorly the underdog. And so now that we know what silk is made out of, the fibroin and the sericin, I'm going to talk to you about how we can make materials out of silk. And the processing conditions for fibroin part and sericin is different. So first we'll talk about fibroin, where we cut the cocoons into small pieces, and then we add some chemicals and heat it at high temperature to degum it to get rid of the sericin. And then we dissolve it in another chemical, heat it at high temperatures to solubilize the silk from the cocoon, which is in the solid state. And then we exchange with water, and then we have the silk solution in water. So that's me. And so in my left hand, I have cocoons. I think you can see it. Yep, that's left hand, yes. And we have the right hand. I did the whole process, and I have the liquid silk. So this liquid silk can be used to make films. You can use it to make hydrogels. You can use it to make wound dressings. You can use it to make sponges and even fibers that will have very different properties to the original silk cocoon fiber. So basically, you can make a lot of things out of it, and therefore, researchers were obsessed with this material. right? So next we go into the glue, the sericin. That is where my work is mostly focused on. But actually, sericin is a pain in the ass to work with because the way you process it, the way you extract the sericin from the cocoons is going to determine the quality of it. So if you use harsh chemicals, if you use harsh conditions, it's going to degrade the quality of the sericin. And in turn, if you make a material out of it, the properties won't be as great. So because there's not much research done on it, there is no current method of extracting high quality sericin without using harsh chemicals and harsh conditions. And then came me. That is, so I am working on this, and I figured out a method to extract sericin. Thank you, guys. Aren't you the best? Thank you. Keep going. So I started working on this, and I was able to develop a new method to extract high quality sericin without the use of chemicals, and it is a scalable method as well. But I cannot talk about the method because my supervisor said no, and because of all things IP and legal. So I thought, my friend suggested that I insert this GIF in here. So I thought that yeah, but trust me, I have a method and it is scalable. Okay, now you in the audience must be wondering, oh, this girl is going on and on about silk. Why do I care? And why should anyone in, thanks. Why should anyone fund this kind of research, right? Well, the answer is chronic middle ear disease. So I am working with an industry partner, the Ear Science Institute of Australia, and they're based in Perth. With my supervisor's research team, they wanted to develop a material to help treat patients suffering from chronic middle ear disease. So people suffering from chronic middle ear disease have perforated eardrums. So that is a normal eardrum, and you have a perforation in the eardrum when you have this disease. This disease causes around 200 to 300 million people around the world per year. It causes significant amount of deaths, causes severe hearing impairment, and obviously there's an economic and social cost attached to this disease. We wanted to talk to Ear Science Institute of Australia, get their expertise, and develop a material to help these patients. So these patients suffering from the disease, when these perforations does not heal on its own, they need to undergo surgery. And that looks like something like this. So you have the perforated eardrum, and the surgeons would place a graft on top of the hole of that eardrum, and then packing material will be inserted to support the graft in this process. So our research group, my supervisor's team, was able to develop the world's first ever silk graft to help patients suffering from chronic middle ear disease. And that, yes, let's go. Let's go Rangam. That's my supervisor's name, by the way. Anyway, so that is a silk graft, and no, that's not a condom. That is the first silk implant designed to treat chronic middle ear disease suffering patients. So now that this is actually under clinical trials, now that we made the graft from silk, we wanted to explore what about make the packing material out of silk too, you know, everything silk. But then you might wonder, why silk? But why not? Okay, because silk is amazing. So as I mentioned, but going to the facts, it's easy to make, but there are different processes to make silk. There's different methods to extract silk, and you can tweak the properties that silk shows. So because of that, and it is safer for the body, it's FDA approved to be used as a biomaterial. It breaks down naturally over time, and it can be designed to break down at different speeds and that can be a very positive quality in a biomedical application. So then we wanted to make the perfect packing material, but we wanted to ask the surgeons, what is the perfect packing material? And that's when our industry partnership came in handy. So they wanted something that can be placed easily inside the ear. They wanted to compress it and place inside the ear. They wanted it to obviously support the graft because that's the role of the packing material. They also wanted a material that can break down at different time points, meaning there are different patients who have different recovery time. So if somebody is having a faster recovery time, we want the material to break down faster. But if somebody is having a serious wound and they want the packing material to last for a longer time, we want it to break down slowly. So they wanted the patients to have different options of packing materials. And the other one is that they wanted it to carry medication, because the current packing material, the surgeons has to dip it in antibiotic solution and then plug it in the ear. So that means initially the patient will have a high release of antibiotics followed by a really low dosage. Whereas if we can infuse the packing material with antibiotics, it would have a sustained release while breaking down the material. So that's the perfect material we were hoping for. And also we wanted it to absorb the fluid that is built up during the recovery period. So these 5 characteristics are what we are working on. So we went to the lab and started making it, yeah? But first of all, that is the current material. That squishy blob is the current packing material. It loses all of its structural integrity when dipped in antibiotic fluid, but it has to be done because it doesn't come with antibiotics infused in the material. And that's what we are dealing with right now. This is the silk packing material, a prototype. And we have infused it with antibiotics. Thank you, guys. I love this audience. Let's go. Let's go, silk. So it is currently infused with antibiotics, and we are testing it out for the release of antibiotics. I'm so sorry if you can't see. Okay. So that's me again, if you are not already sick of my face. And that's the prototype of the packing material. We have it. So these are the qualities we expect the packing material to show. We want it to, we already have created one infused with antibiotics. And this is where I'm going to leverage the amazing properties of sericin as well. By incorporating the sericin and its amazing antibacterial and antioxidant properties, we can use that to help the wound recover as well. So its safety is an issue. Even though it's FDA approved, another PhD student is working on the biocompatibility side of this packing material. And breaking down at different rates, we achieve that by improving the sericin content for the packing material to break down faster, whereas reducing the sericin content because it loves water and it will help break it down faster. So if I reduce it, it will break down slowly. So compressibility is already achieved by incorporating fibroin into this, and silk never disappoints with strength, guys, so it's a given, so that's there. This is my amazing research group. Few are missing, but yeah, you have the silk superhero. I couldn't resist inserting it. I want to thank Institute for Frontier Materials at Deakin University. That's where I do my PhD, and our industry partner, Ear Science Institute of Australia. And I have to thank my friends who came all the way from Geelong to support me. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. I hope you learned something new today, and I hope when you hear the word silk again, you think of me and my silk superhero. Thanks.
Well done, Dilendra, and well done, Bomo, as well. Do we have any questions? Right at the back, yes. Future applications of this tech?
Yeah. Yes, sorry. That's a really great question, and I forgot to mention that this is not just for the ear. So I can't even remember the topic of my talk. It's not only your ears deserve a soft touch, but there are huge different applications. It can be used in different wound dressing applications to begin with. So, and I'm a huge skincare buff, so sericin can be used. It is already used in cosmetic applications, but I want to explore using sericin in that space as well. So, yeah, different applications in biomedical applications, maybe possibly in grafts, wound dressings, yeah, so on. Yeah,
Lots.
It's just the beginning.
Lots, yeah. And here, yep. What happens to poor Bomo? Do we want to know?
I was like, hoping no one would ask that question. Yeah, sadly.
They lay down their life for...
Yeah, just the cocoon, because listen. So there are ethical ways you can. There are ethical ways you can obtain the cocoon as well, but you won't get that continuous fiber which you obviously need for this kind of research and textile applications. So they sadly pass away for us to have the cocoon for research sake and my nice sari's sake. Yeah.
And we got a question here.
Yeah, I heard the other day about. So spider silk, there's a whole research group out there that makes silk. They take the genes from the spider that makes a silk and put it in a cow, and the cow produces milk that has some sort of thing like that. All sorts of genetics. I'm not an expert in that field, but yes, there are so many other ways that genetics is used to produce silk in so many different ways. So that bombos don't have, there won't be RIP bombos. So, yeah.
Love that. Save the bombers. Right at the back. Yep. Is it like a sustainable process creating that silk? Do you know if it's is it a sustainable process creating the silk because at like an industrial level, do you think?
Yeah, so right now there are ethical ways of obtaining cocoons where they're willing to sacrifice the quality of the fiber, so they cut off the cocoon, allowing the adult moths to go out and then use the cocoon. So there's a whole different types of silk cocoons with that, but I gotta be honest, most of the cocoons that we use in the lab and that is used in the textile industry, they unfortunately do not.
Not as sustainable as we'd like them to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately. Yes, yeah.
So the funny thing is, I was doing my 3-minute thesis competition, and the lady asked the same question. So I'm a huge skincare buff, so I think maybe it will prevent if you sleep upright, But maybe if you're like a side sleeper like me, maybe because it's softer, probably. Let's just go with it. Yeah, let's give the influencer time. Good for your hair? Probably, I think so. Right? I don't know, maybe.
Probably, but not too sure.
Yeah, not too sure.
All right, potentially 2 more questions. Yes? How did you get to the optimal ratio of the different types?
Okay, so that is something we are currently working on, and we have tried out different ratios. We don't have a exact ratio as to like what the packing material will need to have. That is currently something we are working on. Yeah.
All right, and final question. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Yeah, for sure. There's a bunch of research that is done out there that you mix silk with different materials to get materials with different properties. So that's very common out there, and we do that in the lab as well. We have my friend who here mixes silk with collagen to make organ that is like a urinary bladder, yeah, something like that.
I think we found another Nerd Night speaker in the front row here.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you, Dilendra. Give it up one more time, please. All right, so you know the drill now, everybody. 10 more minutes. Have a quick break, grab a beer, go to the loo, and we'll come back for our final talk.